Hello, my name is Robert Denton. This is the third in my series of books on alternative healing, and particularly with reference to the book I wrote a few years ago called Will the Real Healer Please Stand Up? The book is available at Amazon.com. Also, for those living in Switzerland, because of Swiss government restrictions on Amazon products, the Swiss publisher, First House Press, has opened an email address for which you can contact in order to order your copy. The email address is there, firsthousepress@gmail.com. Okay, now the book is about alternative healing, and particularly my experience, or 35 years of my experience as a healer. The book examines not particularly the healing I was involved in, but exactly what my gift was, because I never really believed that I was the healer. And I have some medical guidance, if you like, or if I like, that suggests I may be right in that. Now, in my previous video, I mentioned that, or I mentioned the case of two people, both with cancer. One was a doctor who had literally 2 weeks to live. He was told he had 2 weeks to live. After I saw him, he was 2 weeks later, he was back in his office seeing his clients. I saw a woman with exactly the same cancer of the stomach, and she died, sadly, very, very sadly. And it was a tragic case. And I couldn't understand what's the difference. One is a doctor. Strangely enough, he was absolutely against alternative healers, and in his country they were illegal anyway. And he had denounced many of them, and some had gone to prison and some had been heavily fined. And when his profession couldn't do any more for him, a friend of his who knew about me said, "Look, why don't you get hold of this guy, because I think he can help you." And he did, and he was absolutely cool. The doctor was cool, calm, collected, and totally accepting. It just shows you how trauma can change people's attitudes. As I said, 2 weeks later, he was back in his surgery treating his own patients. The woman, on the other hand, died. She was in a terrible trauma, terrible state, terrible stress. My conclusion was that the stress blocked everything. And having been through burnout myself and written a book about it, Will the Real Healer, Fix the Stress, well, that's the subtitle, Fix the Stress Before the Damage is Done. This is High Performance After Burnout. I went through burnout, but I was running a group of companies and did all the wrong things and got really seriously stressed and went through burnout. That's when my healing career stopped. When the stress got pretty bad, it stopped sort of before the burnout crisis actually happened. The book High Performance After Burnout is also available at Amazon.com and available at the email address for the publisher as well. The two books actually are connected in many different ways, because High Performance is about no stress. And that doctor was he was so cool. He was very much in a high performance mindset. Whereas the woman who died with exactly the same condition and treatment, she was in a huge state of stress. Now, in the book on stress and high performance, I explain and demonstrate how stress rockets the production of the stress hormone cortisol in the body, which does all sorts of bad things to the body and to the brain, and that's what causes burnout. Now, that woman would have been pumping huge amounts of cortisol into her body, which would have been blocking her ability to heal herself. Completely opposite to the doctor. The doctor was cool, calm, and whether he knew it or not, I have no idea, but he was doing everything to allow his innate healing system to do whatever it needed to do that could happen after I'd seen him. That, of course, brings us back to what on earth was I doing as an alternative healer? The gift, what was my gift? And to this day, I still don't really know. The only thing is that I believe it's very much connected to unlocking the patient's innate healer so that it can do its job. There's something quite fascinating that I saw several times. I either attended lectures or watched lectures on videos of surgeons, and surgeons who were talking about what they were doing. And I saw something quite fascinating in a number of these surgeons, what they were saying, and this is what they were saying. They all said that they, after the surgery, and this could be quite serious surgery, their patient was lying unconscious on the bed, under medication, and these surgeons knew that the patient could hear them. Now, some surgeons actually spoke to them aloud, but their focus was on their subconscious. Other surgeons just communicated with them via telepathic communication. That's speaking without words, but focusing on their subconscious mind. And they all said the same thing to their patient. They said, I have done everything I can do. I have changed the mechanics of your body, your problem, and I and my team have done all we can do. Now it is up to you to do the healing. And when I heard this the first time, I took notice. When I heard this second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, I thought, this must be very important, because the surgeons understand they can perform the surgery, they can correct what has gone wrong mechanically in the patient's body, but they cannot heal them. And the surgeons understand only the patient can heal themselves. And for me, that was very important. And that linked to what was my gift. It still didn't tell me what my gift exactly was. It may still exist, I don't know. After burnout, I haven't started healing again, because people just came to me spontaneously. I don't advertise or didn't advertise. I didn't charge. People just turned up, and I would give them some of my time, and they would go away, and they would either heal or they didn't. Fortunately, majority did. Now, this is what my book, Will the Real Healer Please Stand Up, is all about. Understanding that it is, or the body's innate healer, which the medical profession understands and realizes it exists, and it's very important. And that is the connection. The connection to my other book, High Performance After Burnout, is about stress. So these two books are linked with each other on the at the level of stress and the enormous amount of damage that high persistent stress can cause. Now, we all live with a degree of stress in our lives. There are lots of little things that stress us. And the important thing is to stay as cool as we can and to understand those stresses and recognize stress when it happens and say, okay, fine, I recognize you. And that's a warning to back off. But this is the important thing about the high performance after burnout, is that I studied burnout because I wanted to know what on earth this was. As a sort of an alternative healer, I wanted to heal myself because my doctor hadn't got a clue at that time. It was about 1985-6, and never heard of it. He didn't mention burnout. It's only later, some years later, that I realized exactly what I'd got. And I studied the burnout, I studied the stress, and I studied neuroscience so that I could understand what on earth was going on. And then I wrote, actually after that, I wrote the 2 books. And that was part of my healing. Writing these 2 books, High Performance After Burnout and Will the Real Healer Please Stand Up, was very much part of my own healing, understanding myself, understanding how my body and brain works. I know talking about the brain is very taboo for an awful lot of people. And talking about the conscious and subconscious minds sounds like rocket science, and really it is. But what I discovered with the high performance after burnout is that it's relatively simple. We don't have to understand how the whole thing works. It's rather like a car. We don't have to understand how the engine works and the peculiarities of the gearbox or the ignition system or the onboard computer that manages the engine. We don't have to understand. We just have to understand how to open the door, get in the car, and start the engine and know where we want to go. And I found it's the same thing with stress or understanding and using the mind. I discovered that the real power of the mind is in the subconscious mind, and if we can use the subconscious mind, there's no stress because it's just so enormous, or that's just how the subconscious mind is. There's no stress. And then I just started to develop anti-stress strategies, and I explain these in the book High Performance After Burnout. So I'll be back with another video, and I hope you find this interesting, and if you'd like to register, and you'll be notified of the next video when it is posted on YouTube. Thank you for listening and watching, and this is Robert Denton signing off.